So now that we know that a string, or now that we've been reminded that a string is basically just a list of characters, what we know about lists is that they are iterable. What that means is I can go through a string of characters in the same way that I would go through a list. I can go through this one character at a time. And as I go through that one character at a time, I can make decisions about what I want to do with that character. So if I have a string that looks like this, and let's say I'm processing data that I gathered somewhere in the wild. I had a computer out there scraping the internet and gathering data, but it comes up with all this extra garbage punctuation in it. I want to get rid of that. Maybe I want to clean that data out. One way to do it, there are many ways to do it, as I said, but one way to do that would be to go through each character and say, is this a character I want to keep? And I would make a decision, yes or no. Is this a character I want to keep? And if I want to keep it, maybe I put that into a different container as I go through. So it's keeping the ones it wants to keep and letting go of the ones it doesn't. So for each str letter, which this is a string, right? It's a string of one character, str letter in str text, the whole thing, if str letter is alphabetic, meaning if it's a letter, uppercase or lowercase, or if that letter is a space, then we're going to print it out. So let's take this text, let's copy this program over, and let's run that. Okay. And that should not be a capital. There we go. All right. Now it'll stop yelling at me. And I'll run that. And you can see, there we go, Bakersfield College. It prints out only the letters. That's useful, but it would be more useful if I could capture those as actual words. So what I'm going to do, instead of printing them out each time, is I'm going to create an empty variable, just an empty container. And instead of printing these out one at a time, I'm going to put them in that container one at a time. It'll keep them in the same order because it's going through the list in the order of index. So str new equals an empty string. And right here, instead of printing it out, I'm going to say str new plus equals str letter. And then when it gets all the way through that whole loop, I'm going to print out str new at the bottom. So there we go. Now I've got a very clean looking string with the punctuation removed. But I can decide what that criteria is here on a per letter basis. So which characters do I want to keep? Which characters do I not want to keep? So even if I have numbers in there, it'll ditch the numbers. Now, if I have alphanumeric in there, obviously it's going to keep the numbers, but I can change the criteria to whatever I want, right? I could say the opposite of that. Let's say I want to keep the garbage and throw away Bakersfield College. Poor Bakersfield College. So I just put some parentheses around this and flip it using the word not. And now it gives me a string with just the junk. So there's a lot of stuff I can use here. Here's an interesting thing that I could do. I could use this method to extract the junk from this as a sample, and then I could turn around and use these characters as the ones I want to clean out of future stuff. If I use that method to identify the junk, then I can turn around and use the junk to clean the rest of my data. So there's a lot of really interesting ways of thinking about this stuff that is very practical and very useful for different situations. Now, without having a situation where you're trying to use this stuff, then it becomes a little bit esoteric and hard to wrap your mind around, and honestly hard to remember because you don't have a reason to use it. I'm going to teach you a few more things, and then we're going to get into a couple of challenges for our sandbox and our assignment for this module, and hopefully that'll help make it a little bit more sense. If I go back to my basic text here again, the other thing you can do, remember I said that strings are like a list of characters. Well, you can use list notation to refer to individual characters in the string or even a series of characters in the string. And this is called slicing. It's basically taking a string and getting substrings. Okay, so there's my text. And if I say str, let's see, print str text, and then I say 4. If I print the fourth index in that, it's going to print the R. That's interesting. Yes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay. So if I print that, I can do that, but I can also print, if I print from 7 to 12, okay, so if I give it 2 numbers with a colon in between it, it's basically saying print from index 7 to index 12, which would be IELD, and I suspect the space. Yeah, there's the space after. You just can't see it. So let's add 13 to that so you can see the whole thing. There we go. So I'm grabbing just from 7 to 13 and printing that out. If I want to, I can start at the beginning, which is 0. And let's say I know there's a period at the end of this sentence and I want to get rid of it, or there's some random character at the end I want to get rid of. If I give a negative number for the second argument, it counts in from the back. So if I say -1, it'll end 1 space from the end. So it goes from 0 to -1 and leaves off the last space. So when I print that, I get the sentence without the period. If I say -10, I can do that. Now remember, if I want to use things like find int index equals str text dot find, and I look for is, I can use that and I'm going to go -1 on here. Okay, so if I don't know where something is, but I know where I want to slice that or what word I want to use to slice that, I can get everything up to that point by indexing the position of this, subtracting 1, which steps it back 1, and then using that to create the string slice. So you can use these things in combination with each other to produce some very interesting results. A couple more things I want to show you with slicing. Now, if I say this, Okay. I have two colons there. 0, let's say 0, 20, and 2. Okay. So I have three pieces in this string notation. The first one is where it starts, 0. 20 is where it ends, somewhere over here. And 2 is the pattern or the steps. So it's going to return every second character in that string. So it's going to skip 1, okay, and leaves those out. So if you know you want every second character, you can do that. Here's one more trick, and this one is probably the most valuable string slicing technique. Colon, colon, -1. So you're not telling it where to begin, you're not telling it where to end, which means you get the whole thing, but you're giving it a step of -1. What that does is it takes the whole string and flips it, turns it backwards. Super useful because there's a lot of times, believe it or not, a lot of times in string processing where you want to do things in the reverse order of the string. And this allows you an easy way to access that. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with string slicing and list notation.